Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm very excited to have such a great turnout. I see that some people are still starting to join us. For this year's webinar on the Spain Digital Nomad Visa, specifically tailored for Filipinos. If you're watching this on replay, I welcome you to this webinar too. So I am attorney Marian. I founded Lakbyte 1 year ago, and over the past year, we've helped more than 200 remote workers like you move to Spain on the digital nomad visa. So last year, we started with a very comprehensive webinar where we talked about the qualifications, document requirements, as well as tax and social security considerations. So if you haven't watched that video yet, feel free to head over to our YouTube page and look for that webinar that we did last year. So today, I'm going to walk you through everything that you need to know to apply for the Spain Digital Nomad Visa in 2024. So in today's webinar, we will discuss quite a few things. And first, we will discuss or do a brief review of the qualifications to even apply for this Spain Digital Nomad Visa. Next, what fees that will you have to prepare? We'll also discuss common misconceptions, common reasons for refusal, as well as the income requirements for 2024. It's saved for last, but that's definitely not the least. So before we dive in, I want to encourage everyone to stay engaged. So feel free to drop your questions, reactions in the chat at any time during the stream, and I'll do my best to address them at the Q&A session at the end of the webinar. I'll also drop right now a Google form link where if you're too shy to put your question here on the chat, you can also just send it through the Google form link. And then next, if you haven't already, also free to join our Facebook group, Spain Digital Nomad Visa for Filipinos, and where you can connect with others who are also going through the same journey. So I'll also drop that link down here. Okay. Now, without further ado, let's get started. Again, thank you for being here today, and I hope you find this session as valuable as you take your next steps towards moving to Spain. So first, let's discuss qualifications. Let's do a very brief review on qualifications. Okay, so who can apply for the Spain Digital Nomad Visa? So the key word here is always remote. So you must either be working remotely for a Philippine a company, a UK company, a US company. Doesn't matter as long as you are already working remote and you have a job that is remote. So you cannot use this visa to fly to Spain and then look for a remote job. You must already have a remote job to begin with. Next, what's the next important requirement? The second important requirement is that you have at least 3 years of experience in a role similar to the one that you're doing now, or, and this is an or, that you have a degree that's related to your current position. So you don't have to have a degree and 3 years of experience. It can actually be either of the two. Okay? So now, what else? Oh, so sorry about that. Other than the degree or 3 years of experience, you must also be connected to the company for at least 1 month, at least 3 months. So if, for example, you've been with the company for over a year, that's perfectly fine. It doesn't matter that you've already been with them for a year. As long as it's only been 3 months, that's more than enough. Okay. Now, the previous qualification was that it was an or. Okay. But now it's an and. So you must have been working with the company for at least 3 months, and the company that you've been working for must have been in existence for at least 1 year. Okay. So it's not sufficient that, for example, you join a company now, but then the company has also just been established. the company itself must be properly registered and also properly incorporated for at least 1 year before you apply. Okay, so that's clear. Next, where can you apply? You can apply either in Spain or through the Philippines. So in Spain, you will get a 3-year residence authorizations. And this is again, because it's 3 years, it's valid for 3 years. If you apply in the Philippines, you can do it through BLS, but you will only get a 1-year visa. And this visa will be stuck on your passport, and you can use this to fly to Spain. Okay, so those are the two differences. So in Spain, you get 3 years. In the Philippines, you get 1 year. Okay, so I see that there are some issues with the form. I will ask my team to help coordinate and troubleshoot. Okay, so let's proceed. So now that we know our basic qualifications, let's go with the fees that you have to prepare. So I see a lot of people asking, like, how much should I be preparing for the digital nomad visa? How much should I be expensing, for example? And it will depend again on where you are applying. So in the next few slides, I will discuss the fees to expect for a Philippine application, the fees to expect for a Spain application, and the fees that are common to both. So whether it's a Philippine application or a Spain application, it's probably something that you will incur. Okay. So first, let's start with the fees when you're applying in the Philippines. So if you are applying for the 1-year visa in the Philippines, you have first the visa application fee. So this is per person, it's approximately around 10,000 pesos. Next, you have the medical exam. So you have to show that you do not suffer from any diseases of a communicable nature. And usually these exams will run you between 4 to 5,000 pesos. Again, per person. Next, insurance. When you're applying in the Philippines, you will need to provide proof of insurance in Spain, and these can be pricey. So before, we partnered with an insurance provider in Spain, but they required you to pay upfront for the whole year. We've now just recently partnered with another provider, which allows you to just pay for the first month, and then you'll receive a certificate of coverage for the entire period. So in this sense, you already have a savings of over 30K Philippine pesos. And then last also, but definitely not the least, you have the NIE. What is the NIE? So the NIE is the foreigner identification number, and it's required when you're applying in the Philippines, or actually most consulates worldwide. So before you can even submit your digital nomad visa application, you must have this number already. So the fee for this NIE is around 600 pesos, and it usually depends on the exchange rate. But as of today, it's 600 pesos and set by the consulate. What about other fees that you don't think of? So for a Philippine application, there are more documents and forms that you have to retrieve from government agencies. So you have to factor in the time that it takes to get them, as well as the NIE itself. So if you do this yourself, know that there are sometimes intricacies to the NIE. So it's not unheard of that people have had to go back 3 times. For example, if you're not familiar with the requirements to get this number. Obviously, we also assist any of our clients who do obtain our packages with the forms and how to get the NIE as well. So for the Philippine application, expect at least initially, this is not yet the full fee. This is just those that are unique to the Philippine application. Expect around 20,600 to 60,600 in fees that you have to prepare. Now, what if, for example, you decide to apply in Spain? If you decide to apply in Spain, you will have to think about the Schengen visa application fee. So it depends on which country that you apply with. But if, for example, you apply through Spain, it's going to be 5,500 for the application fee. And then if, for example, you do flight reservations for your Schengen itinerary, budget maybe 1,000 pesos for that. And then travel insurance. This one depends on how long or how short your stay will be, but I put there around 5,000 pesos. And then if you're applying in Spain, the application fee for the DNB itself is 73.26 euros. And according to today's exchange rate, that's about 4,500 pesos. So initially, the fees when applying in Spain is around 16,000 pesos. Okay? Now, let's talk about the fees that are common to both. So whether you apply in the Philippines or whether you apply in Spain, these are the fees that you expect to prepare for. So first is translation. On average, each applicant or most applicants or most family groups of applicants will pay around 40,000 pesos for translations. And this is because all of your documents, expect a few of them, will have to be sworn translated into Spanish. And it makes sense because it's a Spanish language. You don't present something that's in English to them. So all documents or most of the documents will have to be sworn translated by a sworn Spanish translator. And usually they charge per page. So usually that's around 30 to 40 euros. Next is documents and apostilles. Usually these are for Philippine documents or Philippine apostilles. Roughly, I would say, and obviously you also have to do this by yourself, it's around 5,000 Philippine pesos. Okay. Next is foreign documents. Foreign documents usually refers to documents showing that your client has been established for at least a year. So depending on which country the client is registered in, it can be either in the States, it can be in the UK, it can be in any country in Europe. Usually those are the common suspects. On average, what we've seen most service providers charge is around 12,000 pesos for that document. So it can be a certificate of good standing, it can be a certificate of existence, certificate of fact, certificate of incorporation. It doesn't matter what the certificate is called, as long as it shows that the company has been registered and existing for 1 year. And it's important that that document must be apostilled. So budget around 12,000 pesos per client. So if you have more than one client, you'll obviously also have to get the certificates of incorporation, existence, good standing for those other clients. Next is flights. So usually for flights, it's normally just a one-way trip. We usually post every Thursday flights from the Philippines to Spain. And depending on how full service of the carrier you want, it can go from 25,000 to 40,000 pesos. If you're lucky, we've even seen flights for as low as 18,000 pesos. But normally, we would suggest or we would strongly recommend that you get the flight already with baggage allowance because normally you will bring, well, not so much, but quite a few things with you when you initially move here to Spain. Accommodation. So, what most people usually do when they try to find a place when they move here is they usually get an Airbnb or a spot a home or housing anywhere accommodation for 1 month, and then they look here locally for their place to stay. So it that's how most people do it, and we just put their rough amount of 50,000 pesos. And then you have to think about also your food for the first month, which we've just bought. So if at 15,000 pesos, so maybe sometimes you will still eat out. Because obviously everything is new, so it's also nice to explore a new culture. But this also includes, for example, if you go grocery and cook your own meals. What else? Other random items is transportation. So transportation in Spain is it's not something that I included in the budget since it's actually quite cheap. Mass transport is a thing here, and most cities always have either a 10 ride card of sorts or unlimited ride for the month. But we've found that since we work remote and we don't anyways go out as much, a 10 ride card per city is more than enough. So, for example, in Valencia, where I live, a 10 ride card is around 4 euros. So that already includes bus, tram, metro. So that's around 40 cents per ride. In euros, I think that's around 25 pesos. So you will just add, depending on where you're planning to apply in Spain or the Philippines, you can just add the earlier numbers from the earlier slides to around this total calculations. Okay. Okay, now let's go to common misconceptions. Okay, so in this slide, I will be presenting a few statements, and if you want to participate, please feel free. So I will ask whether it's true or whether it's false, and like feel free to put your answers in the chat box, and then I will explain what the actual situation is. Okay, sounds good. Okay. So first question, true or false? If I decide to apply for the DNV today, I can apply immediately. So let's wait for a few answers. Okay. So the answer here is it can be true and it can be false. So okay. Okay, I love how participative everyone is. Okay, so let's go with the false answer because that's also a correct answer. So it is false if you're applying from the Philippines. So the reason is as I mentioned earlier, you need the NIE, which is basically the foreign identification number for those who want to move to Spain. And right now, especially if you're applying in the Philippines, it takes a turnaround time of at least 2 months to get the number, or at least from the moment that you say that you want to get the number, it takes around 2 months to get it. Because the process is first, you will send an email to the consulate with the requirements already attached, the forms and the required documents. And then the consulate will probably get back to you in like a week or so to set your appointment. So for those that we've been requesting appointments for as of this week, they've already been giving appointments in the third week of September. So that's around 3 to 4 weeks away. From the time that you actually go to your appointment to submit the actual original and physical documents, you will receive the NIE by email, and that will take around 3 to 4 weeks, two if you're very, very lucky. So that's why I'm saying that budget at least 2 months before you expect to receive the NIE. The good thing though is that while you're processing the NIE, at the same time, you can also process your documents. So it's not something that you have to process successively. You can do it at the same time. Also, if for example, you get the NIA now, but then you decide to apply in the future, a year from now, it doesn't matter because the NIA doesn't expire. So if you're even thinking about it, you can always get a NIA now while you have all the time to think about whether you're proceeding to apply for the DNB or not. So that's for the NIA, and that's for a Philippine application. Now, what about for his Spain application? So, if you apply in Spain and hire a representative like us at Lakbyte, you can actually apply in as fast as 1 week. So, our fastest turnaround time from the time that we were hired to the time that we submitted the application was 1 week. And this person had no documents, no invoices, had to fix their contracts, everything, translations, obtaining their criminal record check. That was the fastest, but that isn't typical. Normally, it takes around 1 month on average for most applicants to prepare their application documents. And for those who are applying in the Philippines, normally they engage us 3 to 6 months beforehand. So those are the typical timelines. I would say like a general average across both Philippine and Spain applications is 2 to 3 months before your planned submission date. That's more than enough time to prepare your documents. So again, the answer of this is false if you're planning to apply in the Philippines, but can be true if you're applying in Spain with a representative. Okay, next. If you arrive in Spain with a 1 year DNV, you cannot reapply for the 3 year residence authorization until the end of the first year. Is this true or false? I'll wait for some answers. Okay, Blessy is a very participative audience member. Okay, so it's false. So okay, this is a very learned audience. I love it. So if you this is correct, it's false. So I've seen some other consultants say that you cannot apply, for example, for the 3-year residence authorization if you apply with your 1-year visa from the consulate and arrive in Spain, and this is wrong. We've successfully done around, I think, more than 10 reapplications for those who initially got their 1-year visas from the Philippines and then flew to Spain on their 1-year visas and then immediately reapplied for the 3-year residence authorization when they land. So you can definitely reapply for the 3-year residence authorization without waiting for the end of the first year. And for most applicants, the reason that they do it is because their documents are still valid. So the translations, the apostilles, the documents that they have prepared, uh, for a Spain application, those just need to have been issued within 6 months. So for most applicants, they probably submitted to the consulate around 2 to 3 months ago. So most of their documents will probably have 2 to 3 months of validity left, and they want to capture that validity and immediately reapply. The second is you already get the 3 years. Like for a lot of people, that's very valuable. You don't have to think about a renewal at the end of the first year. You already get the 3 years. And the last and most popular reason is to hedge against any salary increases in the new year. So you will see later on when we discuss the income requirements that the salary actually may increase yearly. Okay. So another common misconception when it comes to this topic is that it's not essentially a renewal, it's really a reapplication. So it's not that you say to the UHE in Spain that, hi, I have a 1-year visa, give me the 3 years. No, it's not like that. It's really a resubmission, and your case has to fall and rise on the merits in Spain. So it does not mean that automatically you have a 1-year DNV, you will get a 3-year residence authorization. You still have to meet the requirements for the UHE in Spain, not only document wise, but also salary wise or income wise. Okay. Okay, next question. True or false? My documents were accepted by the consulate, so they will also be accepted in Spain. I'll wait for some answers. Okay. So I see some answers. So it's false. It's false. Okay. So I this is also something common that we see now, that it's a common hybrid way of applying where you apply in the Philippines and then you apply in Spain for the 3 years. So it does not automatically mean that your documents were accepted by the consulate in the Philippines, that your documents will also be accepted in Spain. So this was related to the previous misconception. And normally, what's wrong here are how the documents are presented or legalized. So the law governing the digital nomad visa and the residence authorization is the same law. However, the documents accepted by the consulate and those documents accepted by the UHE, especially when it comes to legalizing and apostilling them, are stricter, I would say, in Spain. So the rest of the documents are more straightforward when it comes to presenting in Spain, but when it comes to legalizing and apostillizing your documents, they're stricter in that sense. So you have to do it right, especially when it comes to company incorporation documents. So you have to remember to make sure that it's not notarized. The company incorporation document, the certificate of good standing or whatever, is not notarized before you get it apostilled. That's the most important thing to remember. And it's usually where most people have issues with. Okay, next. I applied as an employee via the consulate and I was approved. I can also directly apply for the 3 years in Spain. Is this true or is this false? Okay. Okay. Yes. So it is false. So again, this is another common issue that a lot face. So in the Philippines, whether you apply as an employee or as a freelancer, you will probably be approved if you meet the initial requirements, the salary requirements, as well as the company requirements. However, in Spain, employees are not being approved unless you have two things. So the first thing is that the country that you're coming from, in this case, the Philippines, must have an agreement with Spain for social security. And not only that, it must cover digital nomad visa holders. So the Philippines and Spain, we do have a social security agreement. The issue is that it does not cover those in our situation. Under the agreement, there must be a receiving entity in Spain, part of the same group of companies as the one that you're working for in the Philippines, which is very, very rare, I would say. Because if this was the case, you would probably go and do another visa like the intra-company transfer visa or the highly skilled professional visa, but not the DNV. And mostly for the DNV, it's actually initiated by you as an employee. It's not initiated by the company. So the first option is out, the agreement between the Spain and the Philippines. It's something that we've been trying to communicate with the SSS over the past year. But it's really not an avenue right now unless the agreement is amended. Okay. Next is the other option if you're an employee is if your company is willing to register and create a representative office here in Spain and with no physical presence. Now, I can tell you, we've done around more than 200 applications. I've seen numerous applicants as well from other consultants who are my friends. And I think for those who I've known, I think there's only like four out of, or maybe five people who've done this outside of the thousands of people who've applied. And that's because there's much compliance involved. Most companies are conservative and not willing to actually register in Spain. So this is actually a difficult option. It is an available option. Doesn't mean that your options are closed, but it's not the popular option at all. So what most people do so that they can apply for the DNB is that they switch over and become a contractor. And then after 3 months of being in that contractor role, they apply for either the DNB or the 3-year residence authorization in Spain. Okay? Okay. Next, true or false? I can only apply for the 3 years in Spain if I have a Schengen visa from Spain. I'll wait for the answers. Okay, so this one is actually false. As long as you have a valid Schengen visa, it can be from the Netherlands, Italy, France, Switzerland. It does not matter. As long as it's a valid Schengen visa, you can use that Schengen visa to fly to Spain, apply for the 3-year residence authorization here. So it's not necessary that you get the Schengen visa from Spain. Okay. All that's important is that at the time that your application was submitted, your stay was valid when you were physically in Spain. Because another requirement is that on the day that your representative submits the application or when you yourself submit the application, you must be physically present in Spain. So it doesn't matter if it's not a Spain Schengen visa as long as it's a valid Schengen visa. Okay. Next. Okay, this one is also very, very common, and this is our last item on misconceptions. So, a lot of people think that it's similar to other countries, like, for example, maybe Canada, Australia, the UK, for example, where there's a separate residency period before your stay begins to count for citizenship. So I'll just say the answer. It's no. So as long as you fulfill the 2 years of valid residence, there's no separate period for permanent residence of sorts. As long as you complete 2 years of valid residence on the digital nomad visa, you can, or the residence authorization, it can count towards citizenship. Okay, I see so many questions. Next question still false. Okay, no. So that's it for our common misconceptions. Next, let's talk about the common reasons for refusal. Okay, so here are the most common reasons for refusal that I see either from those who are doing it themselves or those who might have engaged a consultant who isn't as familiar, since the DNV, although it's immigration related, it's still quite new and not a lot of people specialize in it. So sometimes you might be misadvised. So here are the common reasons for refusal. Most common reason for refusal is income. So income requirements, you have to show that you meet the minimum income requirements. It's really the most, I would say, non-negotiable aspect of it. But the other side, the flip side is if you do meet it, it's very likely that your application will be approved. Okay, so it's income. Income is really the most common reason for denial, like failing to meet the required income. Next is payments. Failing to prove the validity and authenticity of the payments for those who are, for the companies who are supposed to be employing or engaging you. So this one I also see like they're not able to properly prove that it's a company that's actually paying them. Next is employees. So as we mentioned earlier, if you're an employee and you want to apply for the 3 years in Spain, unless you shift over to a contractor and become a contractor for at least 3 months before you apply, you cannot apply for the 3 year residence authorization in Spain. It is very likely that your application will be denied. So I've actually had a few Filipinos and even other nationalities consult since, and these are people who actually had engaged a service provider, but they were not informed that unless they shift over to a contractor role, they can't apply for the 3 years as employees. So this one is really quite important, I would say. Next, another common reason for denial is not properly proving entry into Spain. So usually this is if you fly into the Schengen area through another airport, for example, and the initial stamp is not Spain. So if you fly, for example, into Milan, Frankfurt, it's not an issue. You can still apply for the DNB even if you fly in through another Schengen airport. It's just that there's an additional form that you have to complete once you fly into a Spanish airport. It's just one more step. Okay, what else? Okay, this one is a new development for 2024 and especially for those applying in Spain. So for a lot of people also fail to prove the existence of their companies for at least 1 year because their documents are wrongly apostilled. So the UHE, especially this is really a requirement that's unique to Spain. They will require you to show that the document hasn't been notarized before it's apostilled. So very quickly, these are the most common reasons that people are denied for the digital nomad visa, whether in the Philippines or Spain. Okay, the most favorite question of I think almost everyone is income requirements. How much do you have to earn in 2024 to apply for the visa? So if you are applying in the Philippines, the main applicant must earn 2,268 euros. The second applicant, that can be a spouse, a child, a parent, you have to show that the main applicant earns at least another 850.5 euros, and succeeding applicants, succeeding dependents, the main applicant just has to show that he or she earns 283.5 euros. If you're applying in Spain, this is for 2024, you have to show that you're earning monthly 2,646 for the main applicant. For the additional dependent, it's 993 euros, and each additional dependent thereafter is 331 euros. So you just have to add these numbers depending on how many people you're bringing. Okay, so these are the numbers for this year, and these numbers are actually based on 2 times Spain's minimum wage. So if, for example, a common question that I see online is how much is the cost of living in Spain? Will I be able to survive, etc.? The numbers here are actually directly related to that. So if you qualify for the digital nomad visa, you are earning 2 times Spain's minimum wage for the same amount of people. And this is more than enough to live in Spain. And I would say that if you, for example, lived in a major metropolitan city in the Philippines, so for example, I used to live in BGC Rockwell, I am actually spending less here in Spain versus how much I used to spend in the Philippines. Regardless of where you plan to settle in Spain, I would say the groceries, so food, transport, utilities is generally the same, maybe 5% difference in certain areas. What will really affect your budget is your rent. So if, for example, you go to the bigger cities like Madrid, Barcelona, Malaga, and to a slighter extent Valencia, expect that your rent will be a bit high. No, it will really be higher. Versus if you go to smaller towns, smaller cities, or even just surrounding this bigger uh, cities, you will save on rent because rent is the biggest chunk that you will have to pay out of all the other expenses for living in Spain. Okay, next. So we know all that now. The question is how to apply. So, of course, you can do it yourself. And this one, I would say it's okay to do if you're applying in the Philippines for the 1 year visa. However, I would not recommend doing this if you're planning to apply in Spain. So usually what most people have been doing is they DIY'd their initial Philippine application and then hired us again in Spain. And then they find out they could have saved money if we helped them from the start. So, but again, it depends on you if you want to still do it by yourself. That's perfectly fine. And others have successfully done this. Mixed is with, for example, Lakbyte's assistance. We tell you what the forms are, what documents to collect. We help you revise any of the letters that you need from your clients, etc. And basically help you all the entire steps of the way until you get your residence card in Spain. Lastly, there's the premium service, and this usually are available for those who are Filipinos who are abroad or those who holding multiple jobs. They don't have the time to go to government offices. And in this service, we get all your documents for you. We get them apostilled, we get them translated. So other services that we offer, we help with apostilles from the US, UK, and Canada. So, if, for example, your clients are based in any of these countries, we can help obtain your certificates of incorporation, certificates of existence for you. We also do NIE assistance, especially this one. Our most popular clients for this one are those who live in the provinces. Since if, for example, they did it themselves, they still have to fly over to Manila to submit their application, as well as spend on flights and hotel. Okay, translations. This one again, we do help with this and through a sworn Spanish translator. Okay, so that ends the webinar for today. So thank you so much for sticking with me throughout. And if you have questions specific to your situation, you can also book a consultation through the Calendly link on our website, lakbyte.com. And if you haven't yet, feel free to join our Facebook group, Spain Digital Nomad Visa for Filipinos. Now, I know there was a lot of information to digest, and you probably have a few questions. I see so many questions as well on the chat. But before we dive into the Q&A, I want to say a big thank you to all of you for participating today and for the engagement and staying until the end.